Welcome to another Sunday Superversive live stream. I am your host, Ben Wheeler, and I'm here with my co host, Anthony Marchetta. Anthony, how are you doing today?
I've had a lovely day. I get a week off from work, and I plan to use it preparing for the new year.
That sounds absolutely fantastic, and I've got my microphone placed so that my glass is brushed up against it. As I tell everyone, I work best when I'm in janky conditions. I have no idea why. It's just been a constant theme that the weirder things get, the better I work.
I'm going to just straight out say that is completely not the case with me.
Right? Like I
like
actually
like
chafe.
most people.
Like I actually chafe when I'm at work. That when things are like super normal and boring, I can't stand it. Being at the register and stuff like that. But then like two cars get stolen, there's a small fire, and I'm just slapping these things down and taking care of business one at a time. And it's like, wow, Ben, good job. It's not normally like this, and I sigh disappointedly. I'm not gonna miss that job though. Oh
Yeah,
well.
well, it didn't sound fun.
It is, it's not like it's a good place. The gas stations are a good place to work sometimes, but like you have to be able to just handle it, and I can't handle it very well, or at least as well as I should.
So, as always, as always, and per long show tradition at this point, I am not and do not want to talk about my job, so I totally won't. But I will say that looking over 2020 as a year, there's a weird distinction between all of the garbage that's happened and how my life personally has gone. Now, as far as like goals I've set for myself, directions I can go in the future, going pr- pretty well.
Yeah.
Uh, even professionally, for that matter, working on Pinkerton's Ghost has been a lot of fun. I've done more writing this year than I've done.
Oh yeah. Like
So that's
it's been a
and just a lot of fun.
oh yeah. Like it's like working with people and collaborating with people has been like the best. And I could put creative director on my resume. Um, you know, artist goals, I guess. Uh,
As well, you should. I still put producer on my resume from the charity. Me and two friends put on a show for charity and raised $2,000. I
well,
think so. In other words, like nothing.
hey, it's two
But
thousand dollars
I
going
put
to.
producer on my resume. It, going to charities benefiting teenagers who had issues with suicide, depression, and self harm. This was years ago.
Oh, we got Megabuster Shepherd. Happy Life Day, Bradford Walker says. Merry Christmas, and indeed, it is a Christmas. It is merry indeed, for its own sake. Though, sadly, my family's kind of scattered and sick and all that jazz, and
That is too bad. Sorry to hear that. Merry Christmas to Megabuster Shepherd and Bradford Walker, and Happy Life Day. I am happy to say that having watched a few episodes of The Mandalorian, which is extraordinarily, unbelievably okay, uh, they mention
Blasphemy.
Life Day in episode 1, meaning that no matter what you do, no matter how much you try, the Star Wars Christmas special will always be canon. B. Arthur is a Star Wars character. It happened.
I mean, yes, it did happen. I haven't watched. I know, like you could probably find it on YouTube or whatever, but I haven't watched the
Oh
Star Wars
yeah, no,
Holiday
I just
Special.
watch reviews of the Star Wars Christmas special because watching the special itself sounds like it would be painfully awful. Watching reviews of the special, now that's funny.
Absolutely.
So And let me tell you, like, the Star Wars Christmas special is truly like a bad dream. Like, how? Why? What? I. Alright, so, like, I don't know how much you know about it, if anything,
Yeah.
but B. Arthur is in it. And she's the owner of a cantina, and she has a song. There's no reason, but she does.
Right. Hey, you don't
The
need a reason for
Empire
B.
shut
Arthur
down.
to sing.
What?
You don't need a reason for B. Arthur to sing. You just let her sing, and
And
it's
I've read, like, people going to be honest of the live action sections, because that's probably, like, the best part,
right.
like, non ironically. And they have, of course, the extremely bizarre stuff going around with Chewbacca's family. So Chewbacca's family are the main characters of this, and they're in it for the majority of the time. But they don't. But for the majority of the time they're on screen, they don't have anybody there translating them. So it's legit just them on screen, like grunting sexually at each other, and it is sexual. It's very sexual. I mean, at one point, like Chewbacca's father basically watches the equivalent of a porno,
It's just shaved carpets.
and it's at one point a dude wearing a dress like starts. He watches a cooking video that's filmed by a dude wearing a dress, and he just does the cooking video. And this is all filmed, and it's on screen, and you're just watching Chewbacca's father watch a cooking show and make food, and that is Star Wars now.
Well, once in a dark
And
time before before the Emperor or whatever. Like
yeah,
it's
now
crazy.
and now the Mandalorian has made it canon.
No, John
It's
Favreau,
official.
why?
It's official. In the first episode, I was watching it with my family, and they got the guy who Mando was arresting, because you know the story. He's a bounty hunter, whatever. He says something like, I need to I'm trying to make it home for Life Day, and I yelled, Star Wars Christmas Special. It's canon now. You can't take it away. Then they made a Lego Star Wars Christmas Special, and it got great reviews, and it's like legit a sequel to the original.
Huh. I don't
And
understand
that's really
anything
funny.
anymore. I've just lost it. I can't do it. Like the madness is setting in.
No, I'm really not that big of a fan of The Mandalorian, to be honest with you. It's not that great. I mean, it's not awful or anything. I did have fun reading. So, if you watch The Critical Drinker, he's been predicting that Wonder Woman 1984 would be bad for a long time. And he hasn't made the video on it yet, though I assume that's coming this week.
Yeah,
But he
Monday.
watched it, and this is the quote that he had. Jesus wept. I was so right about Wonder Woman 1984. An absolute chaotic disaster of a film. I can hardly believe it was made by the same people. Mahler watched it, and according to Mahler, the film is hilarious.
I don't think too hard about the fact that we're basically commenting on other people commenting on a thing that we haven't watched. I don't know what this makes me, Anthony. I don't know what I am anymore.
Eh,
I don't understand.
I'm not gonna bother thinking. I'm not gonna think about it.
I
It'll
don't
only hurt me.
understand. What am I? As I smash a mirror.
It'll only hurt me if I think too hard about it. I'm not going to.
That's fair. So Mahler said it was funny.
Yeah, Mahler said that it's hilarious and you should watch it with friends and on drugs.
That's bold of him to assume that I do either.
I agree, but
what?
I do not have friends and I do not do drugs.
There we go. That's what I was implying. Oh my goodness.
Hey, my brother has entered the chat. Wow, he normally never listens to us. Didn't this? So my brother says it didn't aspire to much more than a fun little holiday special. On that level, it succeeded, unlike the original. Fair enough.
Was he
So
implying
for
that
those who don't, I
Star
will
Wars was a
say that for
holiday
those who
special?
don't know my brother, so my sister is a writer who collaborated with me on God Robot and Tales of the Once and Future King. My brother is actually all a critic, but unlike me, my brother is normie. So
Oh
uh,
no.
he, believe it or not, he had like I don't know where he's writing currently. Maybe he'll mention it in the comments. But so believe it or not, my brother writes reviews for things like Rick and Morty and The Simpsons and new shows coming out, stuff that I do not care at all about. However, as far as the quality of his writing and his reviews go, he is quite good. At least as good as I am. And I wouldn't, and believe me, I wouldn't just say this. I would just not say anything about it if I did not mean that. I actually do. He is a good writer in his own right.
We start hearing
But he
smacking
does not
sounds.
do fiction. Yeah, he says I am a writer, normie. That's kind of a vague term, and he's somewhere in the house. Yep,
Yep, yep.
it
I
is a vague term, and I'm not going to specify. You'll
Normie.
have to live with. You'll have to live with that. Uh, but yes, he is a writer. He doesn't normally do fiction, though he's tried it before, and we'll see if he does something in the future. I have no doubt if he wanted to, he could make something quite good.
Yeah. You trying to pawn off
Anyway,
Sean Russo to your brother? I won't allow it.
no, though I have actually done that with my sister,
Oh my goodness. Don't
and
do this.
she wouldn't do it. She wouldn't do it.
Anthony, my heart. Think of my heart.
It's like, come on, just write an episode. We won't even tell them it's you. And she's like, I don't know. I don't want to. You're a whiner. Because you're the one trying to pawn him off. These are the conversations that go on in our household. So my brother says he's planning to review Togo. Oh yeah, that's good to talk about. That was a pretty good movie. Felt very wonderful world of Disney. You know of course, the gnome medicine run. You know, the
Yeah,
Balto movie.
yeah.
So I don't know how much you actually know about the gnome medicine run. I learned this years and years ago because, of course, I did. But the Balto movie is absolutely ludicrous,
Yes.
and it's not only that it's ridiculous. Like, you know, the whole thing. But first off, Balto was not half wolf. He was actually a purebred husky. And hilariously, like, part wolf sled dogs are really common, but Balto was not one of them. He also looked was a gorgeous looking dog, but he was not gray. He was black, like entirely black.
So he looked
Uh,
like the villain of the show.
yeah. And even more than that, though, the most important thing, and the reason I'm bringing all of this up, is that Balto was very much not the hero of the sled dog run. So, if you've ever read picture books about Balto, they always mention that Balto ran 2 legs and a total of 50 miles because the guy on the last leg was asleep. And this is true. This actually did happen, maybe. We'll get to that. But this was recorded as happening. Yeah. And Balto was the lead dog on the run that brought the medicine back. However, Balto only ran 50 miles. The dog that ran the most was Togo. And Togo not only ran by far the longest leg of the race, I'll call it a race, the medicine run.
Mm-hmm.
Only ran the longest leg, he also ran by far the most dangerous leg of the race. Togo ran 250 miles, and he ran across the sea. And the story of Togo is legitimately amazing, and it's about time it got made into a movie. And it was a pretty good movie, starring William Dafoe, who's a really, really good actor. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm surprised.
outstanding actor, actually.
Yep. The Lighthouse is an amazing movie. Uh, How recent was this made?
2019.
Huh. I bet they did
My
it just
brother
to
points
flex
out
on.
that the Balto. My brother points out that the Balto movie launched many furries. He is correct,
Yes.
but I feel like that's not much to talk about after Zootopia, Beastars, and BNA. Probably it was just a drop in the bucket compared to those three. Anyway,
No, no, they existed already. The
they
dreams.
did, but
Dark dreams. I still need to
yeah.
write Beverly Hills Nephilim, where the climactic fight with the werewolf takes place in a yiff pile, because I'm that kind of author.
Anyway, yeah, the real story of Togo though, it's a pretty good movie. The real story really is amazing. So, to give you an idea, like the hardest thing that Bolto had to do in the end was it was a pretty smooth run, except that he had to do the two legs, and he didn't even have to. They didn't want to wake up the guy on the final leg, and there's some controversy over whether the musher didn't wake the guy who was supposed to run the final leg up because he wanted the glory. That's actually like a thing that both the real hero musher Sepola, who's the main character of the movie, was accusing him of this, and so was the guy who was supposed to run the final leg. They were saying that the dude who ran the last leg with Balto in the lead only did it because he wanted to get the glory, which is a pretty
Pretty what?
accusation.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But Sepola himself, they had a pretty bold accusation. But Sepola himself and Togo, they had to run over the sea. I forget the name of it. Some doesn't matter. They literally had to run over the sea in the middle of a massive storm, or historic, levels of. But that would take like 2 extra days or something like that, and time was of the essence. So they ran over the sea, and this is a real thing. And they show this, and the movie actually doesn't do the real event justice. I think because they thought it would have looked too ridiculous on screen. So they're running on an ice floe, and they make it right up about 5 feet away. The ice has started to break away from the land, and they're separated. So Sepola, the musher, picks up Togo, ties him to the sled, and throws him onto the land, and then has Togo pull the sled to shore, which is already like crazy unbelievable. But this is all shown in the movie, but this is what they didn't use in the movie. I think because they would have thought it was too unbelievable, but this is actually what happened. The rope actually snapped that Togo had tied onto him, and they were going to drift away until Togo went back, picked up the rope, and wrapped it around himself like a harness so he could pull the sled to shore single handedly,
Wow.
which is absolutely ludicrous.
Right. Like,
And I could see why they did not use it in the movie, because you would have thought that they made it up for the movie.
right, because that's like I could believe a dog like struggling to pull a thing forward, but to like actually like put it around and roll it up and roll it around himself, tie off the harness and save the day. That's several layers of nonsense, but it's a good feel to it though.
My brother wants to point out that he did not write the furries comment. That was Mega Buster Shepherd.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I want to give proper credit to the furries comment. Mega Buster Shepherd. That insight was entirely yours. I defer to you.
Balto
That
movie was pretty average. Actually, I like the Balto movie. There's
it's not a. It was a meh movie. I didn't think it was awful or anything, but it's not. It's so ludicrous, and it is a shame because it's not fair to Togo, and
mm-hmm,
the real story is cinematic enough in itself
right.
that they really. And this is a good example of that. Togo was a pretty good movie. Uh, the other things that they changed, I thought were kind of hilarious. They make it like Sepola. Uh, the musher doesn't like company, and he doesn't like all the attention he gets afterward, and that's absolute nonsense. The real Sepola went on tour afterward, and was signing books with Togo. So no, he definitely liked the attention. He very much liked the attention. Uh,
Right.
he sought out the attention. And they also they end it with this heartwarming thing where he tries to say that Togo can't run with him anymore because he's gotten too old, and then he realizes that Togo never really wanted to run. All he wanted to do was be with him, and he dies 4 years later at the ripe old age of 16. So that's nice and all, great, except that the real Togo was sold to somebody in Maine. Uh, so he did not spend his golden years with Sepala.
Right.
With that said, he did spend his Togo did spend his golden years siring a subbreed of Siberian Huskies known as Sepala Siberians that became renowned as sled dogs, which is true, and a descendant of Togo plays Togo in the movie, which is awesome. But
That
yeah,
is
he
pretty
did
awesome.
not die. He did, and to be fair to Sepala, uh, he was there apparently when Togo was euthanized. Like he traveled to Maine for the end of Togo. But
Aw.
still, like they make it so they make it like Sepala realizes that all Togo ever really wanted was to be with him. Except the real Sepala friggin' gave the dog away. So not
Right.
really.
I mean, to be fair,
And
being the father of a race of doggies is hardly a horrible
no, it's
end of
good. Don't
life.
get me wrong. It's not like he was treated badly and Sepala was there when he was euthanized. I'm just saying that the movie strongly implies that Togo and Sepala were together for the rest of their lives, and that's just not what happened.
Right. I gotcha.
And
I gotcha.
also, and also, of course, that they're implying that Sepala was like this loner who hated the attention, when in actuality, he was a glory hound who was very pissed
Heh.
about Balto getting all of the attention. And if you
Glory
read
hound.
Sepala's quotes on Balto, yeah, right. If you read Sepala's quotes on Balto too, it's kind of hilarious because he's extremely pissy about the whole thing, and he insults Balto a lot. He's like, Balto was a mediocre dog. I didn't even think he was fit to lead. You know, and there's actually legitimate controversy over whether Balto was even the lead dog. Like it might have been a dog. It might have been a dog named Fox, but he didn't have as cinematic a name as
Right.
Balto, so they didn't get. And all of the pictures with Balto were taken the next day. It's pretty funny, honestly. Uh, and of course, Sepala actually he was the owner of Balto because he bred dogs, and he trained sled dogs, and he actually sold Balto and several other dogs that were on that final leg to a circus where they were treated like garbage for years until somebody discovered them and gave them a hero's welcome, which is actually really shitty. Uh, that's genuinely, why would you do that? They're just dogs. you know,
Right.
don't punish the dogs. What did they do? They still did the run. You know,
Togo retired. Just goes to show they never trust a movie, even when based on true events. Of course. I don't. What? Though I do believe The Lighthouse was entirely accurate as a movie. For
well, I will say this: Togo honestly was. I'm bringing up the inaccuracies, but Togo, from what I researched, was fairly accurate. I mean, there was some Hollywood stuff, but again, on the other hand, some of the stuff they actually toned down because it probably would have looked too ridiculous if they included the real story, which is amazing.
right.
And it's true that the no medicine run is one of the coolest things to have happened in the 20th century. It's incredibly cinematic and incredibly dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
The whole story is amazing.
Oh yeah.
And, I think the reason that it's as good as it is too is that it has such a clear narrative structure. Even on its own, people start getting sick, They want to bring in planes to send in medicine, which were a new technology at the time. But the weather makes it so that the planes are too much of a risk to fly through the weather. So they realize that the only thing that they could do is use sled dogs. And they get a musher who's in his 50s out of retirement with his legendary 12-year-old sled dog, Togo. And they go on a treacherous 250-mile run across the ocean. I mean, come on. Like, it's almost too good.
Right?
To see and to save dying children, no less, just to like top it all off.
Right. Little Timmy isn't gonna die of typhus today.
Diphtheria was the
Oh,
disease in this
diphtheria.
case.
Right, right. I couldn't remember. So like I like
Just
Balto as a
it's so cinematic.
right. I haven't watched that movie in so long, but the sled dog movie I like the most, Iron Will.
Oh, I remember Iron Will. We were talking about that too. One of my favorite books, actually. So there are two nonfiction books that I read that I recommend to everybody if they ask me. One of them is Roald Dahl's autobiography, Going Solo, which is a fantastic read. And I actually, years and years and years ago, I actually started work on a screenplay of it, which I'm never ever going to work on again because I realized that screenplays are a fool's errand and there's no point in writing them. It's a waste of my time and energy.
Yes.
It's a shame because I would love to see it as a screenplay, but I'm not going to finish it. Gary Roald Dahl's Going Solo, his autobiography, specifically about his time in the RAF in World War II, and his time in Africa working for a gas company. And the second book is by Gary Paulson, and it's also nonfiction, and it's called Winter Dance. And it's about how Gary Paulson one day just decided he was going to run the Iditarod, and it's an incredible book, like absolutely amazing. Uh, it was sort of, kind of, but not really turned into the movie Snow Dog, starring Cuba Gooding Jr. I am not exaggerating when I say that only thing that the movie has in common with the book is that one of the dogs has a similar but not the same name as one of Gary Paulson's dogs. That's it. Everything else is completely different. I don't even know why they claimed it was based on it.
Well, sure. Like
Uh,
the first one was, part of it, but then,
it's
it.
absolutely hilarious. It's also an amazing adventure story just on its own. You know, one of the most amazing parts of it. He mentions at one point that like his lead dog was a female dog named Cookie. Which, by the way, what a sled dog's name, Cookie.
Right.
Anyway, like he says that the day before the race, literally the day before, he panics and realizes like, oh my god, Cookie's never actually led a race before, and her first race is going to be the Iditarod. So he switches out with another dog that he has named Murphy. And he says because he had been told that Murphy had experience being the lead dog. And he says, I learned later that what that actually meant was that Murphy pulled around kids in the backyard on a sled. He goes, but that's what I'd been told. And on the day of the race, right before they say go, Murphy jumps out ahead. So he says, technically, I started illegally, and I could have been disqualified from the whole race, but like, I wasn't going to win anything. So,
Yeah.
nobody did. And and they were like running through people's backyards with Murphy while he was desperately trying to get the dog to stop. But Murphy hadn't been trained as the lead dog, so he had no idea. And he goes, I have no idea what I was thinking or why I did that. He also learned later, like, there was apparently the day before the race, there's like a mandatory meeting for all of the mushers to go to. And Paulson is at the meeting and he goes, this is insane. Why are we all here? We're running the Iditarod in the morning. We need to. And he looks around and he realizes that everybody else there is just asleep and sitting through the ceremony. So he just falls asleep at the table, and and according to him, he says that he learned later he was voted least likely to make it out of Anchorage, and so, which again, all of this stuff is it's really just an incredible story. He also says that his wife told him that he was mistakenly reported as dead at one point during the race.
Does this guy have any
Uh,
experience? No, he's probably dead then. Time to
well,
time to cozy
I
on up with
believe
the
the
widow
part he was.
Paulson.
Yeah. Well, I believe. By the way, we got 6 people. We have 6 people watching us today. Wow.
Wow,
Why?
we stop it, stop it. You're insulting them. They're all wonderful. They're all wonderful people, and I treasure every single one of you. Maybe not treasure enough to give
That's
you an
not what I
organ.
mean. I don't mean why. No, you're all making the right decision. I mean, why today do we have 6? Like,
Because of the name.
what's
Final Boss
special?
Music plays for 2021. Can you imagine it?
Yeah, that's true.
It's a fantastic
That's
name.
true.
And I wasted it on 2020. There we go.
It's fine. But Winter Dance is a fantastic book. I absolutely loved it. It's hilarious. It is. Uh, apparently, as I looked it up later, and I learned that it's considered semi-fictional, as is Roald Dahl's autobiography. But you know what? If the story you tell is going to be that good, I don't mind.
Hey, I'm fine with that too. Like like at this point, like with what people tell me and what I hear from, like everything, no one knows what's going on. Everyone doesn't, everyone's got their own little opinion and whatever. It's like, sure, dude, I believe it. I won't even question it. I don't care.
Yeah, there it
Like
is. Called Winter Dance: The Fine Madness of Running the Iditarod. Honestly, I don't actually own this book. Maybe I'll buy this book with Christmas.
go for it, my dude.
Just like it's legit that good. It's good enough that I would like to own it. They, yeah, he has a few other nonfiction books that are also pretty interesting. Guts is also nonfiction by Gary Paulson. It's pretty good. Uh, Missing one. He had another one. I can't remember. Paulson's a good author. You might actually know him. I don't know if you ever had to read the book Hatchet when you were in elementary school
Yeah.
or middle school.
Well, it
Yep,
was
that's
read to me,
Paulson.
but yeah, that was good times.
Yeah, either way, it's a good book. I was a fan. I was a fan of Hatchet already, but it's amazing. Let's see. He has one of the best parts of it was the day before the race. I think it was. He said all of the experienced mushers have a meeting with the less experienced mushers, and they're like talking about the various parts of the race and go, and you need to watch out for the burn, but you all know that. And like Paulson raises his hand and goes, "What's the burn?" And then he said, "Everybody turned to look at me, and you could just see the look on their face, like they're going, you poor bastard. The day before the Iditarod, and you don't even know what the burn. You will never make it." He claims he did not even come in last place.
I could believe it. As long as you get past the guy who like had to quit 15 feet in because sudden onset appendicitis or whatever. Hey, it's all good.
True. So yeah, Paulson was a real. I've always kind of been a fan of Paulson. I enjoyed Hatchet. I read its sequels, which are The River, Brian's Winter, Brian's Return, Brian's Hunt. Overall, it's a pretty good series.
Right.
Uh, Winter Dance is by far my favorite book by him, though. But he's a real comedian. He also has a book like Lawnmower Boy, which is about starting a small business mowing lawns,
Right.
and it has nothing to do with anything else he's written. He has, let me see, tons and tons of books.
Yeah. He's a professional, like a professional author in the good way. Like it's pretty nice.
I'm reading. He has 3 books based on his stuff. A Cry in the Wild, which was a book based on Hatchet. That was bad. I remember watching it. It was not good.
Okay.
A book called Night John. Don't know anything about it. And Snow Dogs, starring Cuba Gooding Jr. Technically based on Winter Dance, only not at all. And even a little bit, actually. Literally has nothing to do with it. Also, that terrible film based on Hatchet spawned 3 sequels.
What film was it?
A Cry in the Wild.
I don't even remember that. I thought that was a book name for a second.
No, that's because they intentionally made it sound like Call of the Wild. The first sequel, White Wolves, A Cry in the Wild 2, uh, has a 0% based on 0 reviews.
Oh no.
Now, White Wolves, A Cry, and then they made White Wolves 2, Legend of the Wild. Now, I know you're gonna get confused here, but it's actually the 3rd sequel, even though it's called White Wolves 2.
This is some this is some this is some Jedi, like Dark Forces Jedi Knight. Like no, what is it? Dark Forces 4, like whatever, Force something 3, Jedi Outcast 2, Jedi Academy. Levels of BS. Though I did like those games.
I'm honestly just amazed that they made that so many of these movies, and also that Gary Paulson wrote sequels, at least one of which is perfectly filmable in its own right. So I've read the
Right.
sequels to the Brian series, and Brian's Winter is just an add-on to the end of Hatchet for fans who said that they thought that it was a cop-out that Brian got rescued before the winter hit. So if you already made a Hatchet movie, it doesn't really work as a sequel. But The River, if you've never read it, works perfectly well as a sequel. Like, it's about Brian goes back into the wilderness with a reporter who wants to see how he survived for that long, and the reporter gets struck by lightning and put in a coma, and the radio that they have shorts out, and Brian has to build a raft out of logs and like get down the river in less than 3 days so that he could save the guy's life.
That's an excellent
Like
setup.
that's a fantastic setup for a movie. Like, why would you not use that?
I couldn't tell you, my dude.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't written yet. If anything, it's more cinematic than Hatchet is, and it's a pretty good book. I know I'm rambling about Paulson now, but honestly, I have nothing else to talk about. So,
Yeah.
and you know what? Gary Paulson's a good author. Deserves to be rambled on about. He deserves credit.
Right.
Kyle Katarn does Alaska. I don't know what that means.
What is it? Kyle Katarn does Alaska. Yeah, basically. So Kyle Katarn was the hero to the Jedi Knight series, the Dark Forces series. He's kind of the Chuck Norris of the Star Wars world, and the fact that they haven't given him a movie or a series is utterly nonsensical. Like there's like nonsense that they're doing with all these different shows and stuff like that. And everyone's like, yeah, wow, so many shows. I'm like, dude, they're marveling you. They're Marvel superhero shows. You in like 3 years, you're going to be so tired of these shows. Like, you don't even know. But hey, like, wake me up when they have a Kyle Katarn series, okay? That's all I want.
Well, yeah, now it's the Star Wars channel on the Star Wars network.
Ugh.
So, I have absolutely no interest in any of this. I don't even particularly like Star Wars. I have not seen The Last Jedi. I have not seen The Rise of Skywalker. I've seen the original trilogy, and I've seen the prequels, and I've seen a few episodes of The Mandalorian, which is like it's fine. It's not hateable. It's not particularly great, but I like it. I guess it's okay. I don't seek it out. It's mostly well acted. Baby Yoda's cute. That's about it. That's all I got for it.
I
One of some of,
mm,
and sometimes I'll say this too. Sometimes the Mandalorian looks great, and sometimes it looks awful, and I don't know why. They have one episode where the costumes are so bad that it's actually like really funny. It looks like a bad episode of Star Trek with the rubber aliens.
yeah, like the episode where they try to break some people out of jail is a fantastic episode. Like with Bill Burr in it. Anytime Bill Burr shows up, it's pretty.
That's the one I'm referring to. They looked terrible.
What?
Holy crap. The alien and the acting was really bad.
What?
The episode itself I will say that I thought was meh. Yeah. The episode I don't think was actually like awful or anything, but I thought that the acting and the costumes were so bad. The costumes looked comically bad. Uh, I don't know. I don't hate The Mandalorian though. I didn't even hate that episode for that matter. I thought it was like meh. It was fine.
I enjoyed it. It's one of those. Oh my gosh, press the button. It's one of those things where I kind of appreciate all the work they put into it, and it feels okay. Like it works.
Well, that's critical. That's what the critical drinker said about it. He was like, you know what? The Mandalorian was well-meaning. That's like the best thing I could say about it. It does go to show you, the now I'm going to spoil the hell out of the Mandalorian. If you don't know this, it's your own fault because everybody knows this now. So the scene where Luke comes and rescues them, and gets Baby Yoda. If you watch like the compilations of people who like tear up when Luke shows up, I actually think that the saddest part of all of that is just how easy it would have been to satisfy people. Like, there was nothing to that scene. It's just Luke showing up and being a badass. But holy shit, people were so thrilled about it. And I'm
Right.
just like, man, The Last Jedi had this opportunity. How do you mess up that badly? like,
Well,
because
it was a
they didn't mess up, obviously.
right. It
It
was
was
a
intentional, but you know
right.
what I mean.
Like it's like yeah, no, we know why. And the fact that Rian Johnson still lives in Hollywood and gets work. Oh my goodness, I hate these things. These Wendigos. Oh, it drives me bonkers. No, they're invisible and they're terrifying. So they're almost always a jump scare after they attack you. It's
So,
horrible.
the only game I got for Christmas was Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which I've played a little bit of and is quite good. However, with some of the Christmas money I got, I may get Immortals Phoenix Rising. So
Immortals.
Megabuster Shepherd says, yeah, it's a. Before I say what Megabuster Shepherd, yeah, it's like it sort of looks to be like what I really wanted Assassin's Creed Odyssey to be. It's like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but there are actually Greek gods in it and mythology and that sort of stuff. And that's all I ever really wanted. So, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is too focused on being realistic, has too big of an open world, but it takes too blah blah blah, all of that.
Yeah.
Immortals looked pretty good, so maybe I'll give it a shot with Christmas money. Anyway, Megabuster Shepherd says I try not to talk about Mouse Wars too much; it gets enough attention from the YouTube crowd. Yeah, but
Fair.
we don't really talk about it that much, so I don't feel too guilty.
Not like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he also says, meanwhile, Gardner Fox and Otis Klein never get talked about. Ah, but that is because I don't know who either of them are.
Yeah. I've never heard of those names.
Gardner Fox, I vaguely recognize. He's like a famous actor or something, isn't he?
I mean, there's Richard Fox. I don't know any Gardner foxes.
Let me check. Let me check that. Gardner Fox. Okay, if I look it up, the first thing that comes up is Gardner Fox DC. Oh, so he was a comic writer, and he created a lot of different DC heroes. The Flash. Okay, so that's the thing he's most famous. He was the creator of the Flash and a bunch of other heroes nobody cares about, but that I guess are famous if you're a DC Comics fan.
That's not hard.
Hawkman, Doctor Fate, Zatanna,
Wait, he
the
made
original
Doctor Fate?
He did.
That's fantastic. I
There
love
you go.
Doctor Fate.
And he made the Flash. Uh, so there you go. Otis Klein. Let me look him up. Yeah. With that said, well, Megabuster Shepard is right. I don't feel too guilty talking about because it's not like we actually don't talk about Star Wars that much, nor will I, because I don't care about Star Wars very much. Otis Klein was a Weird Tales pulp writer. He has, let's see, one novel that has its own Infogalactic, Wikipedia, but Infogalactic page. Maza of the Moon. Okay, it is a pretty cool idea. Ted Dustin, an American inventor, seeks to win a prize of $1 million by being the first person to touch the moon with an object launched from Earth. He devises a huge gun which fires upon the surface of the moon. Shortly thereafter, the moon fires back and war breaks out. Okay, that's a cool idea. I like that idea.
That is pretty cool.
One of those books that could never be made today because that's not what happens on the moon. People are boring.
Right. I had a guy talk to me. He's like, "You don't put thought into your." This is my exercise buddy, but he's like, it's like one of those things where he's an engineer, and engineers like you actually explaining your science, and it's like, Wally, I've never ever, like when you tell me your cool science stuff, realize I never really understand it. I just think, wow, what could I use this in for? And how can I abuse this idea for a cool scientific thought? Like it's like, okay, sometimes you meet military guys and they like to talk about their secret stuff, but not really talk about their secret stuff. And it's like, okay, like I don't understand any of this. You're not even telling me the real stuff. I know you're not because you got that smile in your face. I can't even put this stuff in science fiction because I don't understand it. It's like, okay.
Keep a smile on that face.
Keep a smile on that face. I know you're messing around with me. You can't fool
I'm thinking,
me.
See, my first thought was the Dark Knight. Was Joker in the Dark Knight, but okay, let's go rom-com.
Right. No, it's funny because I like that stuff because you realize that everyone, like I've been friends with a lot of military people just randomly. Like Tom Clancy got into trouble because he put too much actual spy stuff into his stories. Like legitimately.
Didn't he guess? But what wasn't it? Most of it a guess, and he just guessed right.
Sometimes yes. Sometimes he actually talked about things he really shouldn't have. And like
so Tom Clancy, I have read one Tom Clancy book, and it was pretty good.
Yeah. No, he's a pretty good writer, but it's and they continuously abuse his name on Call of Duty, not Call of Duty, the Sam Fisher series. Which by the way,
I know what you mean. That's the game series.
I saw a funny commentary on that where it's like, okay, guys, we got the lasers up, we got the dogs, we got the sniffer dogs, we got everything. All right, he won't come in. All of a sudden, there's Sam Fisher playing on the piano the Giorno thing, da 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 da. And it's like he just starts looking at him more and more ferociously, and it's like this guard's dead. This guard's dead. But no, that's never been my thing. It's like, come on, real science. You got to be kidding me. Give me death ray laser beams. I want death. I want to know more about these things. And then I describe it back to him, and he goes, "That's not how it works." But is it kind of how it works? I hate you. And I'm like, "Heh heh."
That's how Steins Gate gets away with basically everything.
Right.
None of its science is real, but all of its science is almost real. So, like, all of it is, kind of squint and it's sort of, kind of, not really, but yes, makes sense.
Yes. That's how science fiction should be. Because it's like, listen, if I want a treatise on how things work, I'll figure it out myself. You know what I mean? Like there's no reason for us um for like you to put on the whole uh sorry, I'm fighting a mini boss. Uh the whole thing for me because I
See,
don't
I'd help you out, but I was gonna say I'd help you out, but I don't know where you're going with this.
well no, like it's oh my goodness. I'm so bad at this game. Uh while I'm dead. Um it's like this, like sure, some people can appreciate the accurate whatever refraction of the sun off of satellite panels or something, or how like blah 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 blah. Nobody actually cares. Like half the time they can't even accurately explain it, even if they could do the math with a pencil and a notepad, right? Like it's not about that. What it's about is actually, like creating something that's believable and fun and, actively does it. Like I'm playing this game and there's this whole thing where everything's got this gigantic um, machine that uh, can do horrible things. No one knows what it is, but it's like a grinder mixed with like a power plant, and it's like there was even a part where I started zapping a giant thing of flesh with green lightning for no reason, other than to show off its capabilities. And it's like, dude, I don't even know what you're going for here, okay? Crazy cult leaders with their super awesome laboratories. Um, I hate the rats. I hate the rats so much. Um, I don't know. It's like, hey, dude, no one actually cares how this dude built this giant floating city from ruinous information that he got. Um, no one cares. No one's asking the how here. All they care is that it's a sick ass looking city, and it's looks pretty sweet. It looks pretty awesome. So you want to know more about it, except there isn't a lot about it because tantalizes you. Tantalizes you with little bits of lore in the ruins, fed by blood and bone. Yes, a good writer should do that. Give them a little taste, give them a little tickle their grundle a little bit for a lot of fun. But don't worry too much about the actual like science of everything. Like it'll keep if you got some decent ideas and the guy can hand wave it away properly, it'll work out. I don't blame Campbell for it, by the way. I know that a lot of people do. I don't. I think like Heinlein and them still had the sales to justify their existence.
Uh, yeah. I mean, we talked about this already. I blame Campbell to a point, certainly.
Yeah.
Uh, you reap what you sow in some sense. I'm so I'm sorry. I'm reading Mahler talking about Wonder Woman 1984 now. It's really funny, and this movie looks like I may actually have to watch this. It looks really bad. So this is what he writes. Context. A magic wish grants Wonder Woman the resurrection of old boyfriend. It works, but he's placed inside another guy's body, while the previous owner is forcibly removed slash stuffed underneath. Steve is pretty chill with this and then tells Wonder Woman, and they do the do. The implications are many.
Good.
He says so to he goes, it's morally baffling to watch. In the movie, everyone involved had no idea what they presented. He also says, the two broad takes I'm seeing on Wonder Woman 84. It made no sense, fun, but absolutely terrible. What a disastrous disappointment couched in a fever dream. And it's incredibly emotional and wonderful in its boldness to go out there and make no sense. I'm sensing a commonality.
Right. I mean, can you imagine it? Like you just hijacked a man's, like body, and his soul is just like floating in the ether, where there's real hell in that universe, and it's not fun. Like it's like where did his soul go? Like did it go to Tartarus? Did he go to the good where the good souls go, or was he stuck with where the evil souls go? Like what is this? I have not seen the movie. I'm not going to probably. Um, it's like that's such a dumb premise
So wait. What's this premise? One more time.
that she
Rewind.
uses a wish to resurrect somebody, except
Oh,
it's really
yeah.
just
No, that's a
stealing
terrible
somebody
idea.
else, stealing someone else's body. Like that's
That's
what
the
it is.
laziest monkey's paw.
Yep.
Like, it's not even trying, that monkey's paw.
Right.
Come on.
It's like
Put in some effort.
yeah, but somebody's gonna lose it, and she's like, yeah, I'll still do. I'm gonna murder this person, and get my boyfriend back. It's like, okay.
So, Megabuster Shepherd says, after some back and forth on this, it's like Shadowversity complaining about fantasy not being medieval realism. No one actually cares how the Death Laser works. Yeah. Uh, Shadowversity I don't watch, and I only know him from that absolute debacle where he tried to argue that women could fight with swords too, guys. Really. Uh, as John C. Wright correctly pointed out, to be fair, quoting one of his commenters, I believe, but as John C. Wright correctly pointed out, while this is true, uh, that women did sometimes fight, I believe he said that it was more common historically than for there to be no women, no females fighting whatsoever. So if you want to say, well, that happens occasionally, so it's okay to include it, it's more common for there to be no women. Let me try and find the exact thing because it was pretty interesting. John C. Wright, swords, women. I don't know. Will that come up with what I'm looking for, with
I need to
when I'm
start
trying to
saving my
find?
game more.
John C. Wright sword fighting. Let's try that. Drawing swords against the deluge. I don't think that's it, because no, that's from 2010. Amazons are as mythical as centaur. I think that was. This was around where it was. It was a couple articles past this. This was about the topic. Amazons are as mythical as centaurs. Oh no, if I click on the link, it says that his page is suspended, but then I click on a different link and it works.
I know that there was some trouble with their web stuff earlier.
For some reason, it works on a different article, and now it stopped working again. This has been happening to me over the past few days, and I know he said there was some trouble. It looks suspiciously like sabotage, but what do I know?
Who knows? I hate these rats.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was that John said, because it was pretty. Whatever it was pretty clever. The moral of the story, though, is that no, I think that's complete bullshit. If you're trying to defend, if you're trying to defend it on the basis of some tenuous historical realism,
Right.
sure, buddy.
Like there's a
Like you don't know.
right. Like sure, like a woman could pretty easily, wield a rapier compared to say a broadsword or a longsword. but like there's still a whole bunch of problems with the physiology, with the idea of it, with like just the change of it. Yeah, sure. Some woman loses her husband and gets real into the concept of revenge, product partnerships and everything. Sure, that's a thing. That's a thing that can happen. But like it's not a normal thing, it's an abnormal thing. In fact, it's defined by its abnormality of her husband
Well,
being
yeah,
murdered
like
by
it
the.
doesn't have a problem with Kill Bill so long as you're presenting the bride as something freakish and weird,
Yep.
which he does. Which, to my recollection, anyway, I don't even know if I have seen Kill Bill in full, but from what I remember, like he does present it as something that's weird and strange. The thing is that coincidences and things like that are perfectly acceptable in the origin or concept stage of a story. So what I mean by that is if you have a story about, I don't know, the last two r- dragon, I'm literally making this up on the spot. It's coming from nowhere. But like the last two dragon riders in the entire world randomly meet each other one day and decide to team up and take down the evil king. That is perfectly acceptable for a story because it's your premise. However, from that point forward, you can never do something like that again.
Yep.
Uh, with Death Note, Death Note did this in a very interesting way when it introduced the character of Misa Amane. So for those who don't know Death Note, it's a cat and mouse story. Like the main character of Light Yagami has a magic book. My brother says the bride was badass. Well, yeah, that's the point of the movie.
It's
I mean, yes,
it's half Tarantino's foot fetish, and the other half wish
just
fulfillment.
watching her kill things. Yep.
I know, right?
Anyway, so in Death Note, Light Yagami, has a magic notebook that he could write down people's names and kill people, and he's being opposed by a detective named L. That's all the background that you need. But at one point in the story, they introduce a character named Misa Amane, who is entirely devoted to light, and not only has the power to use the Death Note, but through various plot machinations, also has the power to know people's names and when she looks at them. So since she can know people's names just by looking at them, you could kill somebody just by seeing their face. That's Misa's power, and she's now entirely devoted to light. So now that's light's power. This would be a contrivance too far normally, but I think that Death Note makes it work. And the reason that I think that Death Note makes it work, and I've developed this and I've tried to keep it in mind, and I may use it one day, maybe even in Pinkerton's Ghosts, but I called it the Misa Amane rule, where if you're going to introduce a contrivance like that into the story, then it needs to have the potential to be equally destructive.
Yeah.
So Misa Amane works as a character. She ended up ultimately being advantageous to Light. Light uses Misa in the end. Misa's arrival and the Shinigami Ren is what he uses to kill L.
Yep.
But Misa has equal potential to self-destruct on him and turn everything around and completely destroy him. For that reason, I think that Misa is less of a trump card and more of a wild card. So L, or I should say, Light is able to use it effectively, but it makes him look clever instead of making him look lucky, which is the difference. My brother says that Misa's the Harley Quinn of Death Note. I guess so. Never really thought of it like that, but you're not wrong. Honestly, I think that Harley was probably more competent than Misa.
Yes.
And Harley wasn't all that competent.
No. Like there's that episode where she like beat the Batman for the Joker, but it's like, listen, you're still the Joker's lapdog. Like whatever you think you are, like you're still defined by the Joker, and they're trying to like make her not defined by the Joker, but she's still like defined by the Joker, so it doesn't work. It's weird. I kind of hate what they're doing with the character because it was pretty sweet what Paul Dini and so on could do with her back in the day. I remember back in the day.
Oh, wait.
Hmm?
Can I take a moment to rant about libertarians again?
Yes, you may rant about libertarians whenever you like, within reason.
Okay. Uh, so over the Christmas break, a libertarian in a writers group that Ben and I are a part of posted an article on how Scrooge is actually the good guy of A Christmas Carol, and I said no, that's clearly not the case. So the article's argument was something to the effect of, well, that is because he ran a good business, and the money that the business was making was so good for the economy that it was a net positive for society. And there was nothing wrong with him lending at interest. So, to give you an idea, I left that conversation because it was getting really annoying. So, these are the things that were said after I left because I just clicked on it and I'm trying not to bang my head against the wall very loudly. Ben, I apologize. I used to mock you for getting into arguments with libertarians, but I understand why. So, somebody points out, quite correctly, Dickens was horrified by the state of the poor and blah blah blah. England was not a healthy free market with folks shopping for best interest rates. It was a predatory environment, and even if temptation played a role, lending at interest, I think, has been described as man using the devil's weapon against fellow man. Temptation. Yep. And Dickens is clear that Scrooge was a sinner, heartless towards the workers, worn down at the grindstone. The language is intentional.
Scrooge is an evil man.
He says he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner, hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel has ever struck out generous fire, secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster. He carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days, and he didn't thaw at 1 degree at Christmas. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. No warmth could warm, nor wintry weather chill him. So I'm not going to quote the comic, because I don't want to quote anybody directly. I'm going to summarize it, though. And I'm not saying, like, what forum this is from or who this is, but this is a summary of the response. And the response got 7 likes, which blows my mind, because for me, it's retarded. And I'm saying this on here. This is a venting thing. I doubt this person listens. If he does, oh well, then I guess I made an enemy. What can I tell you?
He's wrong.
So he goes,
oh my goodness, I hate this.
He refers to lending at interest being sinful as an idea right up there with geocentrism, which, like, okay, but, fine, but...
Well, first off...
Lending at interest, but I want to read again, though. Hold on. This is a description of truth. He was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, a squeezing, wrenching, gasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. So this is what he is describing. Now, when Scrooge dies, remember, everybody celebrates. And this is what is being described as lending at interest, as if that's a sin. Like...
So here...
What?
There's lending at a fair rate, and then there's lending in a usurious manner. Right, I'm going to save. I'm going to learn my lesson. Megabuster Shepard has a good point. The whole point of the story is that Scrooge rejects the Christian spirit of charity and kindness. Absolutely. Like, when you live your life and nobody is sad to see you go, and even your best, like the closest thing to your best employee, Bob Cratchit, goes, maybe we shouldn't celebrate too hard, but his wife is like, screw this, like, he's dead.
So he goes, I read this, ever since 12th grade. Scrooge spending less to heat himself than me is a dumb way of describing a man careful with his money. And I'm just reading that going like, did you read the book though? They didn't say that he heated it less than you. They said he had other workers there who were freezing and begging him to put in coal. Like, why are libertarians like this, Ben? Why? Why
Right.
say such obviously dumb things? It's so obviously stupid. I get it now. I apologize. I'll never mock you for arguing with libertarians again.
Yeah,
It's
no,
so hard.
it happens. Like, I think there's an element of like autism to it in a way. It's like, oh, but this is
Like,
literally how.
holy shit. Is that really the hill you're gonna die on? Libertarians, the pro Scrooge party.
Yes, they are going to die on that hill. Because otherwise you're taking away from what they want to do when they want to do it, and they
Oh,
can't
but
abide that.
just stream, they're like, so, huh, you're saying that because he charges interest? What are you, a geocentrist? Like,
Tell them
no,
yes,
this
philosophically.
idea that if you run a successful business, then by definition you can't be doing anything wrong, is something that's so stupid only a libertarian could believe it. Like, because
Right,
it's so obviously stupid.
right. It's like okay, well Ben, you could, when Pinkerton, oh, dang, when Pinkerton's ghosts takes all the, starts getting money, you can just take it all because it's your idea. No, that's not how it works. Like, sure, I can be selfish. Anyone can be selfish with what they're doing.
Look,
But if
legally you certainly could.
right,
I mean, at least we haven't signed anything.
right,
But like,
but
come on, is anyone going to say that's the right thing to do?
a libertarian would, and I should listen to it because libertarians is an inherently selfish thing. Like it's
And
not.
this idea, they're like, "What, bro? I'm just describing economics 101." It's like, yeah, exactly. You're acting as if this whole thing is some gutless economics lesson. It's not.
Right. Like, I think they forget the point where, like, we live in a, let me say it, society. And because we live in a society, we've got other people who we have
So
to care about.
this is another one. Hold on. Predatory loans is nonsense, and it's based on the idea. And again, I'm trying to paraphrase and not quote it directly here. It's based on the idea political authorities know better than free people what assets are worth. In reality, an asset is worth what a person will give it, which varies over time and space. Holy shit, though. Like, so, according to the libertarian, what you charge someone, it is impossible for that to be unfair
Right.
because it's just what it's worth.
I
So,
I can't
you can charge
believe.
somebody to ruin as high as they want. As long as you can convince them to take your loan, there is nothing wrong with what you did. See, this is why. This is like legitimately, non ironically, this is why Democrats are a thing with millennials. The reason that millennials vote Democrat is because at least Democrats aren't gaslighting us.
Well, they are, but
They are, but that's not what you, over the election and things like that.
right.
But
They're
they're
not.
not gaslighting us over loans. Like,
Right.
we're here drowning in debt, and they're at least saying, yeah, what happened to you was messed up.
Right. It's like
Libertarians are there on the other side going, it's your own fault. And surprise, surprise, millennials aren't on the right.
right. It's like I talked to guys about it, and like, unfortunately, the guy I was talking to was logical. And when I said, "Hey, listen, we can just take it from the university endowments," and yes, we can literally take everything we need to pay off the vast majority of the worst student loans with university endowments. They are for-profit institutions that are selling a bad product in the free market. Like, it is a libertarian ideal to have people enslaved by debt. Of course, they won't say it like that, because who in their right mind would literally say, there it is, bastard. Let us enslave people through debt, but that's what, usury and all that jazz do. It is an enslavement of your fellow man with debt, with all these different things here. and I don't need like some sort of like economics degree to debate it. I can just say, listen, oh my goodness, I hate this thing. I hate these mini bosses.
But this is the whole problem. You get that, you get this whole libertarian idea. Well, you paid for it, so it doesn't matter how they misled you. It doesn't matter what they did. It doesn't matter what if the rates are uh, don't make sense for anybody but the lender. It doesn't matter how it happened or any of the circumstances surrounding it. The fact that it's financially crippling an entire generation of people. It's the same ideals behind the sexual revolution. Consent equals, it's consent equals morality. It's
Right.
the exact same logic that's used in the sexual revolution, and don't think it's not connected. It absolutely is.
But if the free range child I bought, consents, it doesn't matter if the parents could. Oh, come on, like libertarians are on the evil spectrum of things. Like it's like, but my personal property, we just want to be left alone. Yeah, but the thing is that if a city
Yeah,
burns,
that's where you start losing the millennials. This is why Republicans, and this includes Donald Trump, by the way, as much as I appreciate everything that he's done, this is why Republicans are never going to win over millennials, because they don't acknowledge that we've been had. You know, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. You have so when one side is telling you, well, too bad, suckers, it's your own fault. Like, I'm not very sympathetic towards them either. you know,
right? Millennials
what?
are stupid. Like it's not
Of
an
course,
argument here.
but this is legitimate here, and I'm not saying this sarcastically. Taking advantage of the stupid is still a sin.
Yep. Deliberate.
Like, I'm being completely serious about that. This includes myself. I've made my own economic mistakes, whatever. Taking advantage of the dumb is still sinful. Dumb people are not inherent, like, because you're dumb, that doesn't mean you now it's okay to just do whatever people want to. People can do whatever they want to because you're stupid enough to accept it. You're still taking advantage of people. Like, oh my god, that drove me nuts. I used to say that the only people who would get on my nerves like that are people who are in favor of abortion. I didn't understand, Ben. I didn't know.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No,
Well,
it's
abortion's the same, but that's
yeah.
the thing. It's on the same level.
But hey, as long as it's, free range or something like that, I don't know. As long as it's ethically sourced, it's okay. And then you just look at the libertarian and want to smack him. Come on, bro.
And I'm still, by the way, I'm not going to respond to those comments because what would it even do? It would accomplish nothing. But
Yeah, no,
I,
it
I,
wouldn't.
I had to rant about that for a moment because it's just like mind-boggling to me that I have to go. Like, I guess millennials are gonna have to choose between the party of Scrooge and, you know, the party that promises to get them out of the debt cycle that they have been trapped in by unscrupulous lenders and liars.
Right.
Because and then that's when the libertarian goes, what do you mean unscrupulous lenders? Those don't exist. And then millennials go, right, so I'm going to go with the guy who acknowledges the fact that we've been hacked. Because of course you are. Like, why wouldn't you? I mean, I could think of a billion reasons why, but when you're thinking of yourself only, and you're trapped in a cycle of debt that's going to cripple an entire generation, and one side is pretending that it's all your fault and nobody else did anything wrong because the market is an omnipotent god. Well, you're not going to be very sympathetic to that, are you?
Yeah. No, and here's the thing. Like the reason why I'm very specific about it. Uh, Libertarians in their heart are swindlers. They only care for me and mine. I would know. I was a libertarian.
I know
Welcome.
too many. I know well-meaning libertarians. I won't go that far, but with that
Hmm.
said, certainly want to say that.
There's there's some libertarians whose hearts are in the right place, and a lot of them are good guys, and they just follow the economic policy that makes sense to them. But the problem is that like there's more to it. Our issue is not an economic issue. Sure, there's an economic issue going on. There's a horrific economic issue. We've basically been in depression, recession,
In fact, that's kind of the point of A Christmas Carol, isn't it?
right? There's a,
Scrooge economically. I suppose I should probably, maybe I'll even do that, but I'll have to be careful because it's going to be a shots fired article if I write it for Castalia.
just write it.
But that Scrooge is the perfect libertarian.
Yeah, just throw it out there. Like it's one of those things where like what can you do about it? You know, like there's a heart problem on.
Honestly, all I should really do, all I should do, I don't have a Twitter anymore, and I'm not getting one anytime soon, but if I had a Twitter, I would just share that article that they had shared in there and said, I completely agree, Scrooge is the perfect libertarian. Just with no other context. Just, I think Scrooge should be the libertarian mascot.
Right. Scrooge did nothing wrong, even though everyone celebrated his death. Like when they're celebrating your death,
Like that's the thing about it, Chris. They're going into all of these economic theories, like being an unscrupulous lender doesn't exist because of the market, and I'm reading it going like, what the fuck are you talking about, though?
Right.
I just read. You can read the book. It tells you he's an unscrupulous lender, pretty much word for word.
Right.
More flowery than that, but in essence, so it doesn't tell you the details of what he did because it doesn't have to. It just has to say, you're gonna have to trust the narrator on this one.
Right.
So I know that a lot of people hate Dickens. The reason that we study Dickens in school is because of G.K. Chesterton, who he was considered like a popular writer, but not a very literary writer, until G.K. Chesterton revived his critical reputation. A little bit like what J.R.R. Tolkien did with Beowulf, actually.
Yep. And we're grateful for it. No. Yep. Excuse me.
Yes, I am.
Sorry, there was this one of the monsters popped out at me. And it's like, no. Please.
I love A Christmas Carol. It's one of my favorite books.
It's my favorite Muppet movie.
I think A Tale of Two Cities is pretty good as well. I think that's a pretty good book. I don't like anything else by Dickens, but with that said, I can acknowledge the skill in The Christmas Carol, especially. It's a brilliantly structured book. Honestly, the structure of A Christmas Carol is absolutely ingenious. The way that the book is set up and the way that everything works, and the character development is, of course, I know I'm not saying anything special here, but we are defending Dickens, so I'll say so. The character development is 11 of 10. It's brilliantly well executed. Dickens has his flaws as well, and I do not like most of Dickens' work. Dickens can be quite good. As for the personal character of the man, I don't care. But that's all I have to say about it. I don't really know. I think he's considered kind of an asshole from my understanding, but I don't care. He is not my favorite Victorian author. My favorite author from that era is Conan Doyle.
Of course. Admittedly, I don't know anything about his life. And it's like, yeah, right, but it was also like Victorian times. And whatever he lived, he still wrote A Christmas Carol. But then again, he was also as mercenary as other groups were. Like, it was easier to be an author back then because there were like 1,000 little magazines you could submit stories to and stuff like that. And it was all, oh my goodness. And it was all pretty sweet.
Was it? I'm not sure if it was easier or not, but I suppose because there was no television competing with it or anything, like if you wanted to be a writer, then you were an author. So I guess in that sense. With that said, as far as writing goes, like nowadays, I think that things have changed. I would have said as recently, probably as like 5 years ago, or maybe even less, I would have told people that you really can't make a living as an author without getting tremendously lucky. I actually no longer believe that. I think that anybody can make a living as an author with enough work. The thing is that you need a tremendous amount of hard work.
Yep.
But I no longer think it's luck dependent.
No.
Like, I think that that used to be the case, but with the advent of Amazon and the self-publishing boom, I actually don't think it's luck dependent anymore. I think that if somebody wanted to make a living as an author, they could do it.
It's so, like, I know. So talk like I'm gonna talk about the future for a bit. Like, Victorian fiction is pretty great. Penny Dreadfuls and dime novels for the win, dude. Wait for our April Fools uh, episode of Pinkerton's Ghost. It'll
The
be.
April Fools. So the April Fools special of Pinkerton's Ghost is legitimately the most excited I've ever been to write anything in my life.
Oh, it's gonna be great. Um, so anyway, so talking about like future goals, like, even though I'm a very, shall we say, random person with my action, I do have deliberate goals I pursue without fail. Like, my North Star is turned towards going to Vietnam, and my North Star is turned towards being a great writer. I know Ben Chia just had a thing where he talked about how, like, you don't always want to strive to be the best, because what if you fail at being the best? Well, like, here's the thing, and he talks about mastering. And his point was you have to have a whole bunch of different things you're good at to support yourself, which is a true statement. But I believe fully in mastery. I believe that even arts and crafts can be mastered. Brian Niemeyer talks about it all the time, and I very much trust Brian Niemeyer's opinion on things. Um, Part of what I'm doing for Pinkerton's Ghost is just setting it up. Right now, we're at the stage where we're getting ahead on our workload, and we're taking care of business as much as possible. By doing that, we create more content. Now we're on unauthorized. Eventually, I'm going to go to Vox Day and say, "Listen, you've published us for 30 episodes. Even if no one takes it, I would like a horror subscription with some special episodes." And of course, there will be free episodes for our. Well, no, sorry. There will be secret episodes for our Patreon and unauthorized subscribers, those who pay us directly money. And that'll start greasing our wheels a bit. Even though I know Anthony's goal is not to be, the greatest writer ever, you know, he still puts the work in and takes care of business. The same with Ken Dickinson, my audio editor. So, and fellow contributor. So the goal isn't for us to just create this free stuff all the time. The goal is to put us in a position where we're earning money, where we're getting subscriptions, where we're getting advertisers, and
Hmm.
so on and so forth. Like, we don't want to be in a position where we're not making money off of it. But the thing is that, like, you still have to build up a fan base. Like, you can't just throw books out. You can, like, mechanically, you can, but in reality, you need to be high fiving and handshaking.
Well,
Oh, thank you. All these other authors and stuff like that, and sharing around email things and handling
so
your
like I
blog.
said,
It's an art
as
form
recently
itself.
as like yeah, as recently as like 5 years ago, I would have said that to try and make a career in writing fiction is foolhardy. It's so luck based. You need to get spotted by a publisher and whatever. But that's not the case anymore. Now it takes a tremendous amount of hard work. You need to be dedicated. You need to have a plan. You need to know what you're doing. But
Yep.
anybody can do it.
Yep.
And that's the difference.
Now, keep in mind, I rarely read most stuff that comes out, because something is going to tick me off. And it usually does, just because it's like, okay, now we're changing it up and we're doing this, and the writing's not really as good as it should be, and we have random stuff that I just don't know, what's going on. And it's like, you just didn't want to write about what you were originally writing about, were you? Um, And ooh, we might be getting a right episode pretty soon. Um, oh, we lost one of our viewers. I bet it was your brother. Um, I bet it was. Uh,
Oh, right.
so,
Em-
so like for the, what was I talking about? Um, so concerning viewership and concerning Pinkerton's Ghost. Wait, no, I've already talked about that. What was I talking about? I can't remember.
my
Oh,
brother
right.
says, well, my brother says I am right here.
Oh, okay. Uh, okay. No, it's like sometimes I read it and it's like you just didn't want it. You just wanted to change up the plot. Like, I, I have trouble reading Richard Fox's work, even though his stuff is really good and his action scenes are amazing. But then he'll make a plot swerve, and I'm like, why did you do this? It doesn't make sense. Well, I needed the plot to go in this direction. Yeah, but you did it in like the worst way possible. You can't just have a character going insane and then tell all the dark secrets and stuff like that. You can't do it. Like, you have to have a build up for it. Like, you have like, and it was like the secret that she revealed was like the groundbreaking secret that defined a whole generation of characters, and the secret made sense. He even built up to it. The problem is he did it page 7 on one of his novels, and that's just not where you put a reveal of that. You put it where like characters have just saved her life and she's experiencing a breakdown, so she unburdens herself because she thinks she's going to die or something like that. There's 1,000 little things that you can do to make it work that he just wasn't willing. Was there two of them? No, it's just that fast. um 1,000 little things that he just didn't want to do. And like, hey, I dig it, you got to keep a plot moving. And this is like cheap dime store stuff, but it felt bad. It felt really bad because then it didn't feel like he was respecting the uh plot or setup or anything like that. Like, it just didn't feel good. uh and that's kind of just the long and short of it. I wish there was more to say about it, but there isn't. Like, it's just unpleasant. Oh well.
Oh well.
Dang
I have nothing to add.
it.
That was well said.
It's fine. Like, even if you just shove out books, like, try to make them good. Like, because otherwise it just brings down the quality for everyone, and it makes it worse for everyone. Like, as
I
we,
agree.
because like my goal isn't just to satisfy myself and take what's mine. It's to leave the whole art as good or better than how I left it. Where's the oh no. uh hey, if that happens, that'd be great. But if it doesn't happen, I've kind of failed. Like, and it's weird to say it like that because that's an explicit hey, you failed sort of feeling. But hey, it's where is that monster? uh
So Ben,
yeah.
do you what are your non Pinkerton's Ghost writing plans for the new year?
So hold on a second, let me pause. So my Bob Pinkerton's writing plans. The biggest thing is, now that I'm ahead on Pinkerton's Ghosts and I've got some stuff set up for it, I will be finishing the Time Stop King and starting to work on my Monster Hunter Coattails Rider, Beverly Hills Nephilim, which is about a guy who kills monsters. And it's going to be set in the same world as the Pinkertons, but there isn't going to be a lot of overlap. Like they're in different sort of genres, and they might.
All right, so I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Can I set and we're live on air, everybody? Isn't this exciting? Uh, these are the types of stunts we pull to bring in an audience.
Oh yeah,
Anyway,
that audience.
can I set right? Can I set a book in the world of Pinkerton's Ghosts?
Absolutely. But
Because my next non-Pinkerton's Ghosts idea is set in the world of Pinkerton's Ghosts.
right. So the only thing is that just make sure we can work on it together so that the lore adds up. Like it's because it's important.
Well, yes. So in this case, you would be the editor, but I have to warn you that I have no money.
It's a good thing I'll take a portion of the profit then.
They tell you not. Everything says not to do that. Everything that you read says never agree to that. I'll have to figure something out.
Right. So it's.
I will.
Right.
Don't worry. If I hire you, you'll get paid.
Good, because I charge like. So you get the friend discount. So I only charge you 50 per 100 pages for formatting.
That's actually pretty good.
And then
that's legit pretty good.
Right, but I usually charge 100 per 100 pages, so like $1 a page. For now, that's just for formatting. For editing, oh, I'm gonna make you promise one of your firstborn kids. I'm gonna take your firstborn kid, Anthony. You better figure out my secret name, otherwise, don't let him Bob Kane you. Oh no, dude. Like, the way I do it is I can trust myself, to be honest. I would publish him through a thing I would set up so that I can guarantee the money goes to me before I distribute it to him. So in actuality, it's more like the guy who wrote Fight Club, where I'm actually stealing from his money as his agent and then giving him a paltry living.
I will say this. I will say this. I do trust Ben. With that said, literally everything I have ever read from anyone says not to do this. They write don't, can you promise a percentage of the profit? And they just write no in big letters and circle it and triple underline it. So, don't worry though. You will get paid if I hire you as editor. As far as formatting, same thing. Maybe I'll do it myself, but that'll probably be too much of a pain for me.
It's
also, although, to be honest, a Pinkerton's Ghost book, we may want to look at, and I'm saying this, by the way, literally, I have no idea if this would be the case, but I would talk with Vox Day about it, I think, before anything.
Well, so even though we're on unauthorized, I'm not going to go to Vox Day with a thing unless I've got it in hand.
Oh, I agree. I completely agree with that.
Right. So
that's not what I'm saying. I'm not telling him go with a pitch. That's a terrible idea anyway. You never do that.
Kill Kenny.
You go with a...
Yes.
Anyway, I'm not saying go with a pitch. That's a bad idea and never do that. What I am saying is go with the product.
Mm-hmm.
And then if Vox turns it down, then who cares? What do? You just go, okay, then we'll publish it ourselves.
Right. And it's not like I haven't been currying favor with people like Nick Cole and Brian Niemeyer and John Delaraz. Like it's like it pays to be friendly with everyone. Megabuster Shepherd says, I would buy a Pinkerton's Ghost book. Anthony, you've got your first customer. Now,
there you go. On you as well, by the way. But
I expect not just the face. All right, I don't want just a face picture. I want a full body nude on the back cover, just the full thing. The fans demand it. We could do a
The
little
answer to that is yes, of course.
Of course. Uh,
Not even no hesitation.
right, you're just sitting there laying back, a book placed suggestively. Our new Pinkerton's ghost novel. And that's just the cover. Sells like
And it has
hotcakes.
nothing to do with the story. Has
Abs-
no connection to it. The story's not a comedy. Whenever people ask me about it, I just go, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're referring to. They'll just mention the picture and you go, oh, the cover picture? What's the problem? And then I'll bring it up and I'll go, but I didn't show anything. Just seemed like a good pose.
it was an editorial decision. The editor demanded it.
I figured that it would bring.
Beautiful.
Why?
So,
Okay, so I will say for people listening, Ben mentioned his. So my product, which would also be set in the Pinkerton's Ghost world, would be an idea that and Ben already knows this because I've discussed this with him before. But uh, it would be an idea I came up with a while ago. It would be a cat and mouse thriller set in the city of Shipton. For fans of Pinkerton's Ghosts, there was a two-part episode set in Shipton, The Hunted and Mystery, or 2 episodes, I should say. It wasn't really a two-parter, but The Hunted and Mystery Meet were both set in the city of Shipton. This would be a Shipton episode about a cat and mouse thriller about the return of blood money to Shipton, and a young private detective in Shipton who figures out this world of monsters and magic, and it would be very much in the style of like Death Note meets Daredevil, sort of urban fantasy type thing. It wouldn't be horror exactly, which is of course why it's not part of the Pinkerton's Ghost specifically. It would not be a Sean Russo story, at least not as the idea I have it now. I as fond as I am of Sean, I had a character that I already created in mind for this, and I like the concept of the character enough that I want to use him. The detective's name would be Nick, and he would be and the idea for him was that he was like he was a private eye who was living in a hard-boiled noirish private eye world like Dashiell Hammett, but he wants to be the sort of detective who could thrive in that world, but in actuality. Okay, sorry, I just saw that we got a message from our other Pinkerton's ghostwriter, and I got distracted for a second. Anyway, so Ben, you could look at that.
yep. I know I'm expecting our first guest article to come in soon. So
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, to finish what I was saying though, so the idea that I had for this character was that he lives in this hard-boiled noir world like Dashiell Hammett, and he admires those sorts of detectives and wants to be that sort of guy. But in actuality, he's actually too good-natured to really make it work, and too friendly, and too optimistic, which he kind of considers a shame because he thinks that those sorts of stories are cool, and he thinks that's the sort of detective that you need to be to succeed in this world, but he's just too good-natured for it to really work, And I like that. I like that idea for for a detective,
Yeah.
and I've had it for a while, and I've had it for a while, so I'm going to use him as my main detective. And the original version of the story brought in Morgana as well, but I might not do that. It's not plotted, it's just the basic concept of a cat and mouse thriller. Uh, it was honestly, the idea came after watching Jessica Jones and being really pissed about how badly done it was, because the central conflict behind Jessica Jones is such a good idea. A mind-controlling villain where you have clearly delineated rules on each side, and may the best one win. Like, Kilgrave's advantages are you can't get an earshot because as soon as he hears you, or as soon as you hear his voice, you're immediately under his control. And Kilgrave has limitations on his powers, and just like with the Death Note, you had to work under those limitations to try and find a way to outsmart the other side. but Jessica Jones frequently broke its own rules in really annoying ways, no less. So I wanted to use that same idea of a villain who can control people's minds, and that same idea of having like the cat and mouse chase between the two sides, the detective trying to catch them as he tries to slowly figure out the rules of how this mind control works and how to manipulate them in order to succeed. So that was the idea I had, and it would be set in Shipton because I like Shipton. Uh, I think it would be an interesting place to set something. That's where I work on after season 1 of Pinkerton's Ghosts. I'll start working on that seriously.
Oh, I telefragged the boss monster. Awesome. I wasn't even
You what?
expecting that. Telefragged him. Where I basically
So teleported a grenade, or
No, I teleported myself into him and he blew up.
I see.
Yes.
Why not?
Yeah, no, right? It's that kind of world. Yeah, no, we've got a lot of things on our plate, which I really appreciate with. Let me see what he said. David episode. Yeah, David Halquist's guest episode as Old Tom. Fantastic. Fantastic.
It's very good.
Um,
Yeah, I read it. I want to hear it. I'm curious to see what he puts into it, but the story itself was very good.
oh yeah. Like I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. Uh,
So
then there'll be a John
for
C.
the listeners,
Wright.
Old Tom, yeah. So for the listeners, Old Tom has been referenced in several of the Sean Russo episodes. He was Sean's mentor. Sean is unconventional in that most of the Pinkertons go generally end up in this business because they grow up with it some way, either with these powers and they find the Pinkertons ghost because the Pinkertons find them, because they have these powers and they're useful for it, or else they just kind of fall into it. Basically they grow up with experience, and Sean was not like that. Sean was thrust into this and he had to get trained. And the person who trained him was Old Tom. So Ben thought it a good idea to give Old Tom an episode set back in his glory days in the 80s. And David Halquist wrote it, and David Halquist is very, very good. Outstanding, in fact, I would agree. It is a
Oh
very
yeah.
good story. Uh, uh, so, is a John C. Wright episode confirmed? On it, tell your list.
I will be working on it to get it out there whenever possible. I'm hoping for the end of the month, but we will see. I just communicated with his lovely and wonderful wife, El Jaji Lamplighter. Um,
You should ask Jaji as well, though I'm not sure if this sort of style is necessarily her case.
you've read, her Rebecca Griffin series. That stuff's horrible. Rachel
Griffin.
Griffin, excuse me. Um, that stuff's pretty, pretty out there.
That's true. Yeah,
Uh,
that's true. I mean, you could
and
ask her. I mean, I'm sure she'd do a good job with it, but
and so
I just don't know.
she also has a detective series concerning her character Prospero, and has written several detective short stories.
But not horror.
It is only a small step to jump into horror. People exaggerate its difficulty. All it is a careful explanation of what is truly horrifying, and then laying it out properly so that things, shall we say, pop in just the right way. Also, that performance
So,
helps sell it.
yeah, that's true. Uh, I will say that acting out Sean in the story, doing the acting for Sean in the stories is super fun. The radio play aspect of Pinkerton's Ghost is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it's a fantastic part of it.
And that's another reason I'm really looking forward to the April Fool's Day episode. Because we'll be leaning into that.
Right. So there's
It's a long way off, though not as long as you might think. It's a long way, but not that long.
no, it's closer than you think. So I actually wrote a miniature horror story on Twitter. If you ever want to take a look at that, where Brian Niemeyer goes, first strive for clear, concise prose. Readers won't care how smart you're writing it. Smart your writing is if they can't understand it. So I go, I'm a big proponent of purple prose. But if you're writing to make yourself or your audience smart, you're missing the point. I want you to feel the drip of water in the cave. Something scrapes the walls ahead, but your boot is stuck in the rocks. It's getting closer. The breathing is the worst part. The thing in the shadows is heaving. You can tell its lungs are like bellows. It's huge. You tug harder, twisting your ankle nearly to its breaking point. You aren't a man. You aren't a man. You're an animal, terrified, caught in a trap. It scrapes and lugs its body towards you. You feel rather than hear the skin folds flop as it crests a hill of shale and refuse. It gasps and keens like a dog scenting something it hungers for. It knows you are there. You feel something snap in your ankle and you scream. The thing's, wait a minute. This is out of order. What the heck? It hands crest the top. It feels over the top, the two long fingers probing and tapping the ground, always crawling towards you, always seeking something beyond itself. It touches a scrap of fabric torn from your jacket and rubs it. Too many finger joints for a man. Who cares what happens to your body? Escape! It screams at you. You crawl, grinding your teeth against the sharp pain of your broken ankle. You finger the rope you used to climb down and grab it. You giggle hysterically. You're going to make it. One arm disappears and you hear the thing huff and lick, its wetness palpable, the horror of it groaning instant by instant. You wrench a ruined, bloodied foot from your boot and crawl, desperate. The Hulk moves again, and you hear its body flop over the side. You don't dare look. Its fingers come close to where you crawl for your life. Teeth gnash behind you, like chewing with your mouth open, but worse, like gnawing on a sponge. Vinegar and rot reach your animal brain and drive you on. The thing slides against the rope. You climb up harder, stronger, the lifeline cutting into your flesh as you grunt. You grip the cliff wall and pull your body up, fighting against exhaustion and gravity all at once. You look down. The skull face is staring up at you. You didn't know it was a skull. Blind, sightless pits and enlarged nostrils, rotted, ruined teeth. But you knew all the same. It could look like nothing else but a ruined man, arms outstretched, begging for your flesh.
I dig it.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna turn that into an actual episode sometime. Um, Not a Jack Morrow episode, because after season 1, I want to introduce us reading out old episodes with other characters.
Well, we are doing that, actually, aren't we?
Yeah. With David's episode, it's an explicitly a older episode that he's describing as if from the past. But hey, it works, and it gives us breathing room, which is more important than a lot of things. Like, a lot of things fail just because they can't handle the pace. And, like, a lot of things, they either don't have a pace, or, like, as in a set time where they get things done, or they just kind of do too much at once. Like, the Homestuck reading did both of them, where, like, they did too much at once in the beginning, and then they did too little in the future. And it's like, congratulations, nobody cares about your project anymore. Also, a new there's another Seth Zintak episode that just came out. I like it. I don't even care. I love it. Anyway,
Wait, what just happened?
like an hour ago, we have a Seth Zintak featuring Caesar 3 from the SPQR series. I have no idea. But is that um, point is he's my favorite like YouTube comedian. Even though he's normalized himself quite a bit and got rid of his edgy jokes, it's not there. But no, like I'm dedicated to this stuff. I really do want to get the Time Stop King out there. I've already written like 30,000 words into it. I need to edit my Paradox Jones um, stuff. I'm gonna take a leave of absence from work for a bit, partially to recover from like all the sickness in the family, and also because I just have so much I want to do, and I'm tired of feeling tired. Like it's one of those things where like I've worked 45 to 50 hours for the last 2 years almost without a break that wasn't incredibly traumatic to me. So it's like, okay, no, I'm going to take advantage of this and then get back to work. That sort of thing. And I think I can bang out I know I could bang out all the extra episodes of Pinkerton's Ghosts going forward. And I know I can set up some guest episodes as well because January. So we got David's episode for January 1st, uh, which is like the first week in January because I took the extra week this time. But January has 5 Fridays, technically four. So it's like, we can do a lot with this stuff. We have a lot of time to work with. And we'll.
So
Hmm?
I have several ideas that are currently kicking. I'm working right now on the next Sean Russo Pinkerton's Ghost, which is no title yet, but it's set in Appalachia,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I'm currently working on. I'm hoping to get it done soon. Uh, let's see and by soon I mean like if not to later, not
Right.
like really not long. After that, I don't know what the next one is going to be, but I have several ideas. There's a time travel episode. Uh, the time travel episode where Sean goes back to the Revolutionary War episode, the Revolutionary War era, to Washington's crossing of the Delaware. The only problem with that is I want to do the research, the proper historical research, and make it a two-parter. So, uh, I maybe I'll take some time this week to do that research so I can get it done right. I also have an idea for taking us into it. I don't know what the verb would be here. Pinkertoning it. That doesn't sound like it would work.
Mm-hmm.
Pinkerifying it. No, that's even worse. That's just stupid. But I'm going to take a Sherlock Holmes story and put it through the Pinkerton's Ghost filter and see what comes out. In this case, the story will be the Conan Doyle story that is the base of this one. And when I say the base, I mean that what I come out with is going to be radically different.
I'm looking forward to it. And also, I'm there to hit you with a stick. But, I'm also looking forward to it. Hmm.
But the base story will be the Conan Doyle story. That's after that, or not necessarily after that. This is in no order, by the way. I don't know what order it's going to come out in, except that Appalachia is going to be next. But the other one that I want to go back to the Pine Barrens and bring Morgana back, but I don't have any ideas for that yet, except for the very vague idea of Morgana's coming back.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on. The Appalachian one is plotted. I have an idea. It's very basic, but I think it's strong. It has some cool reveals, cool stuff going on in it. It rips off The Cry of the Night Hound by John C. Wright, which is a great story. So that's always good.
Oh, absolutely.
One day people will realize that literally all of my stories are just me ripping off somebody
And that's perfectly fine. Like it.
They're all just combinations. I think one day somebody's gonna realize that the Pinkertons ghost, the thriller book that I have set and shipped in is just Death Note, and I just ripped off Death Note.
And then eventually I'm gonna be like, please, do you have even one idea, original idea? And you're like, no. And I start screaming in horror.
Chad, no. Chad face, no.
Chad, no.
No. I look, Ben. I steal lines. I steal lines of dialogue and just use them. I don't even care.
That's fair. That's what you're gonna have to do. Oh well.
And stealing from John C. Wright and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle can't get much better than that, at least. So, it's at least I'm stealing from the best here.
Yep. I think for my next Jack Morrow episode, I've pushed him to the limit. So the next one I've already written is going to be probably one of the most intense Jack Morrow episodes. Period. It's great. It's going to be fantastic. It is. Mwah, perfect.
I just want to point out that I have given the listeners the exact Sherlock Holmes story I am ripping off by name in this special.
Cultural.
As well as the John C. Wright story. As well as the John C. Wright story that I am culturally remixing.
I like the term cultural remix. It makes me feel like a DJ instead of just a tomb thief digging
a hack. Instead of just a hack writer.
Instead of just a hack writer. And it's like, it doesn't even cause me like imposter syndrome. Like, I was talking to some people on like Realmies or something.
I feel no guilt. To be clear, I feel no guilt about this because my stories in the end are very much their own thing. So I say this in good fun, but with that said, like, I'm using Conan Doyle's ideas as a base. First off, Sherlock Holmes, at least up to the casebook of Sherlock Holmes, is in the public domain anyway. So it's not even like I have anything to worry about. With that, but even with John C. Wright, like, to be clear here, when I say that this next story set in Appalachia rips off The Cry of the Night Hound, I'm talking like I use there are concepts that John used in The Cry of the Night Hound that I liked, and I'm remixing and using in my own way, ultimately to create what is a unique story. Like, in all seriousness, this next story is a unique story.
Oh, yeah.
It is not The Cry of the Night Hound, not at all. They're very, very different stories. John's is much better. But,
yes.
Yeah, in the end, there isn't much I could do about that, I think. At least not yet. Give me time.
Right.
Before I can beat John C. Wright. See, I'm reading Bakuman now, which ironically is by the manga about making manga, which is actually by the Death Note team. And in Bakuman, like, they're ripping, they're taking ideas from other sources all the time. That's how they make things,
Yep.
By the way, Bakuman's very good. I recommend it.
It's
a good manga.
It's all right.
I think it gets a little bit. I'm nearing the end now. I'm like at chapter 151 or something out of like 170 something. I think I'm something like that. I'm deep in it. It's good. I've been engaged. It has the same propulsive storytelling style as Death Note, where there's lots of twists and turns to keep you turning the page. The problem with Bakuman, though, is eventually I'm at the point of the story where our main heroes didn't accomplish their dream yet, which is to get their story made into an anime. Ironically, also the Pinkertons Ghost Stream. What? Anyway.
Anime. You mean a primetime horror cable show hosted by the legend Bruce Campbell.
But I want Studio Trigger to animate it.
It wouldn't work as a concept.
It would work fantastically.
It wouldn't work at all.
They would have to. I don't know.
My blood pressure.
Anyway, no, really.
Actually,
Oh, but with Bakuman, I'll be very quick because I just had one thing to say about it. So late in the story, they introduce like a rival artist who has like a team of critics and reviewers that he has on standby that he like interviews for ideas and has them critique his manga, and he just ignores what the editors at Shonen Jump tell him, and he uses that to create his manga, and he wants to do that to beat our main boys in the battle, and it felt really silly.
right.
Like he was. Do you do you know what do you know who I'm referring to? By the way, because
Namine,
you
right?
mentioned that you read it.
Isn't his
What
name
was
like
his name?
Namine or something like that?
Yes, that's him. That is definitely my least favorite part of it because he just feels way too cartoonish to me.
Right.
And it also, this feels like by far the least realistic part of the story. Like, I don't know, there's just so many contrivances about how he's doing this and, like, that they're letting them do it. And I get that it's a manga and whatever, but the problem is that the story should kind of be ending now. They have a successful manga in Shonen Jump
Right.
that's been running a while, so they should, you know, they should get the anime soon, and that's going to happen. I'm near the end of the story, and they're going to get their anime because that's clearly where the story is heading, you know.
So,
And that's fine, by the way. That's a perfectly acceptable way to end it. But I'm still entertained. Like it's not bad. It hasn't exact. I wouldn't even say it's dropped in quality, really. Especially the artwork has held up. The storytelling is still exciting, and it makes you turn the page. But it's just really silly.
yep. There's so
It's so silly.
they're using him, so they're like each of these different things are basically them um like talking about a certain thing that happens in storytelling. Like you got people who are arrogant, people who have ideas on what it should be, like Miura, who, by the way, I read the TV
Yes,
tropes.
Bakuman is very interesting. Oh yeah, Bakuman is very interesting to read as a meta commentary on the manga.
Yep.
Like if you read it with the meta in mind, it becomes a lot more interesting. For example, the introduction of this character is really fascinating to read when you look at them complaining all the time about like, you know, we should introduce a rival here, you know, in various chapters, like the series is struggling, maybe we should introduce a rival. We really wanted to pick up in this start a story arc,
Right.
you know, and now reading about the introduction of this very silly character who I don't really think fits in the world of Bakuman very well,
Hiramaru.
because Bakuman, uh, no, Namine, or
Oh,
whatever his
Namine.
name
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Namine, who I don't really think fits in the world of Bakuman very well. Like, he then starts his own company, and I think the, the way that they set up how he's funding it, I think there's going to be a reveal here somehow, and I don't know it yet, but somehow he's rich and can fund like a manga creating company, and it's just like, really though, really, and he doesn't care about making the manga. He just cares about beating, you know, our main boys, Ashiroki Sensei.
Right.
Like all he cares about is beating Ashirogi Sensei. And again, I'm just looking like, really though? Really? That's all you care about? You
Right.
don't care about like being a success? I mean, you're an adult doing an adult thing in the real world, and your main motivation is I just want to beat these two guys for no real reason. Uh,
So
I don't know.
I can't. So
When they
there's.
want to beat when they want to beat Nijimura, that makes sense because they also want to make a successful series, and Nijimura is motivating them.
Yep.
But he's like, I will spend millions of dollars to create this manga for no reason whatsoever except to beat you,
Yep.
because I'm evil.
By the way, there's like a few characters who I actually want to read their manga, especially
Oh
Shinta,
yeah,
like Fukada's Kyoshi Knight and Road Racer Giri, like just because of how hot
Road
blooded
Racer Geary looked fun.
it, right. So the thing
Uh,
with Namine, so
Nijimura is a cool character. I like him.
so I actually want to talk about Naname Mine real quick. So he basically sets up he sets up three different challenges. Uh, the first one is that he has 50 or so online correspondents who proofread his ideas. The problem is that 50 people are not a good way to write anything. Like, you cannot
Yeah,
have, like, so the reason why Pinkerton's Ghost will work is because I will keep the reins on it. I know what it should look like, and I know how to
I
spice it.
wholeheartedly agree with
I know how to spice it in just the right way to make it work. So, in other words, no matter how many people I get as guests, it all comes through me and my vision. I mentioned this to somebody else on Twitter where I said, hey, listen, like, sure, someone else could probably write a better pure horror story than I could, but I could write the best Pinkerton's Ghost story, period. Well, don't get me wrong, Red Coal's Black Shadow, amazing. Amazing story. But, like, it's the feeling of it. So then, afterwards, Naminé hires Nakai, who is like the worst character in the series, even more than Naname, to basically up the art and improve things because he's a
I find Nakai kind of amusing sometimes. I don't think he messes with the story as much as Nominate does. I'll put it that way. With that said, I understand why you say that.
he bothers
Uh,
me so much. Like it, like
I
his
understand why you say that, but with that said, I don't think he messes with the story as much as Nominate does.
well, he's
And to
such a
be fair,
gamma.
I don't think Nominate wrote the story or anything.
No, no. We have a different conversation. So this is more like trying to hire quality cannot improve your series. For the last one, he basically shotguns it. He hires a whole bunch of failed mangaka and has them create different stories suited to their talents. And the editor's like, you're banned from Shonen Jump. He ignores his editor. He ignores these things. Like, don't get me wrong, Mayura ticked me off. It's like, okay, yeah, you need to add more gags into this. I don't care, dude. Like having an editor who tells
That
you,
was I thought that was really well done, actually, the conflict with Mayora. I thought that was one of the smartest things, because they did a good job making Mayora, I don't know, believable, I guess.
yeah, like the
Like, that conflict felt believable to me.
yeah,
Like, Mayora was not an idiot. You know,
right. He was technically right that gag manga have incredible longevity, and things like One Piece do have tons of gags. They have gags in the middle of serious scenes. Like it's like legitimately, well, not like next to each other, but like in the middle of a serious episode, Luffy will do something stupid or silly or will crash a party or something. But the thing is that that doesn't make One Piece worth reading. Like, you can't say X is the reason why things stay in Shonen Jump. No, absolutely not. There's many funny scenes in JoJo Bizarre Adventure. There's many funny scenes in One Piece, but they don't overlap at all. People read Shonen Jump for the
well,
Shonen
the
Jump
thing about
experience.
Mayora is that in Bakuman, I had just read it, so remember. And
Yes.
Miura wasn't really wrong. In fact, he wasn't wrong at all. Tanto was not canceled. They quit Tanto, which was the gag manga that they wrote. It
Oh,
was not canceled, and
they
it was
were
not
writing
on the
a
way to
gag manga.
cancellation.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're
it was
right.
not canceled, and it was not on the way to cancellation either. It was it was getting middling ratings, or it was getting steadily middling ratings. They quit because they didn't like doing it.
Yeah.
And everybody agreed that they could do something better than that because they weren't really suited to gag manga. But Miura's goal was to create a long-running Shonen Jump series, and Tanto very well could have accomplished that goal. However, that was not the goal of Ashirogi. What they wanted to do was create a hit in Shonen Jump and take advantage of their skills and make the best manga that they can, not make something that could run for a long time. So I actually thought that was one of the smarter things. And Hattori is my favorite character in it, who was, their original editor and then their editor
Yeah.
again after they switched to Miura. He's the best character in Bakuman. Uh, with that said, and Hattori, the difference between him and Miura is that Hattori understands their goals more.
Yeah.
he's more in sync with them. Miura is trying to create a series that will run for a long time in Shonen Jump. So he has them create Tanto, says he believes that Takagi can do it, and he's really not wrong. He's right. They create a manga. Sure, the gag mangas normally are not near the top of the charts, but they're also rarely near the bottom. And as long as you can fill it out with the gags and you could keep it at that, you know, 8 to 12 ranking number, more or less, you'll never be canceled. And they weren't canceled. And they're even told when they want to quit that, they expect Tanto to be a long runner. But it's never going to be a hit. And Ashirogi want to hit. They want to use their talents to do the best, to create the best material that they could possibly make. They mention at one point, like, what makes a good manga? Is it, should you be striving for only audience satisfaction, only for sales, or should you be striving to create art? I mean, it's an easy conflict to have in a story like Bakuman, but you got to have that discussion at one point. And the answer that they come up with is that right now they need to create something that audiences will like, but the goal is that one day they will create art that the audiences will like, which is an
Yep.
interesting way of resolving it. And probably the closest to correct that I've seen.
It's
In
about
fact,
the
that's a
audience.
yeah. In fact, that was a very interesting. I thought that was a really interesting idea, actually. They have that debate, and the solution that they come to is that, well, right now we're not good enough to create art that the audience, to create the great artistic masterpiece that we know the audience will get behind. Our goal is to become so good that our great artistic masterpiece will be beloved by the audience, which is an interesting way of putting it.
Yep.
It's a good manga. I don't think Namina. I keep forgetting that guy's name.
Good night,
Villain.
Chris.
No.
Nana Namine or something. Na na na
Yeah,
na
Namine.
Namine.
Right. I'll call him Namine. I think I'm wrong, but whatever. Like, I don't think that Namine is a terrible character or anything, but I don't think he really fits in Bakuman. I think he's too cartoonish and too over the top.
You see, that's the thing,
And
though.
I
It's a series with Nijimura in it, who or Nizuma, Eiji Nizuma, and it's like, hey, he runs around and he uses gratuitous English.
Azuma is a more complex character than you think, though. He shows up and he acts like he's, this socially awkward, manga-obsessed nutcase, and he kind of is. But as the series goes on, we see pretty quickly that Nijimura, I think it's
Nizuma.
Nijimura. Could
It's
be wrong.
Nizuma.
It's Nazuma. Okay, yeah. Nazuma. Okay. But we see as the series goes on that Nazuma is actually willing to learn, to grow. Also, I will say this too. Child prodigies are something I could believe more readily a thing that exists, even though it's unusual, as opposed to a guy who has a secret cabal of manga writing teenagers that he accesses behind the backs of Shonen Jump editorial staff. And
Yep.
the way he treated the editor, like, I will believe a child prodigy over this other guy.
Yeah.
And also the way he treated the editor just did not track to me.
Kasugi,
I'm like,
oh yeah,
especially, yeah, the way he treated Kasugi did not track to me.
And-
I was like,
yeah,
there's no way the editor would take this. None.
right.
I mean, Hattori is giving Ashirogi Sensei, deadlines and things. He's giving them requirements that they have to hit. And this editor is just giving him nothing.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. It didn't really make any sense to me. I mean,
like half of our conversations about Pinkerton's Ghost is me saying, "Hey, where's my manuscripts? I need my manuscripts. I don't want us to waste this time that we've got. Like even for a thing among friends that we take seriously, we're still having higher standards than this one guy in Shonen Jump." But then again, it's part of the thing. Like, it's to show what a weak editor.
So the idea I think that you're supposed to get with him is that he is getting the manuscripts, and the manuscripts that he's getting are good. The thing is, though, at some point the manuscripts are becoming bad, And he's just going, well, you agreed that you would listen to my method, so I'm just going to ignore what you say. But that's the thing. I'm just like, but how could you ignore what he says?
Yep.
He is your he is your editor. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you can't ignore what he says. Like, if I don't know why Kasugi, especially the second time he's handling Nijimura, he actually gets to handle him again. At
Naname.
least the second time, I don't know, or Nazame, yeah, sorry, Nazame. I don't know why he didn't say to him, oh no, you're going to give me this, or I'm not accepting it. I'm handing it back. That's what he should have done,
Yep.
obviously. It seemed weird that there was no growth with that character.
You see, yeah, like I know that some of these characters are just clearly metaphors or characters or people or stuff like that. But like from a writing
Well, some of them
perspective,
are very obviously based on real people. I
yeah,
mean, they say as much. If you look it up, like that, several of them are based on real people.
yeah.
I don't know who, but like they mentioned, some of the editors that you see around like Shonen Jump that show up in the background every now and then are based on real editors,
Yep.
which is kind of cool. Uh, don't get me wrong. Even now, even like 150 chapters in, I'm still enjoying it. But it does feel, I feel like the main conflict's over. you know, so they
Yes.
need to keep coming up with these artificial conflicts. So you have to introduce an edgy supervillain, into the because otherwise there is no conflict. Now the rivalry with Nizuma makes sense to me. It tracks to
Yes.
me. It's like a rivalry that an adult could have, if that makes sense. Like, they'll help each other out, but they're also pushing each other to get better. But also, like, normally, if their career depends on something, Bakuman does a pretty good job of setting that up. So generally, in their rivalry, Nizuma, like it's not their career that's on the line. It's just their pride. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like they had an arc where they needed to try and get first place in jump and defeat Crow, or within 10 weeks, or else they're going to, or else he's going to cancel Crow. That was it. Trying
Yeah.
to remember exactly what it was. Yeah, they need to get their manga ranked above Crow within 10 weeks, or he's going to cancel Crow. That's a good story for Bakuman. I really liked that. It was exciting. It had tension in it, but at the same time, it wasn't like cartoonish. It
Yep.
wasn't like, so I've taken advantage of these old men and used their stories for my nefarious, evil manga making mill.
Right. Which is like, if it wasn't for the fact that most of the stuff was clearly not up to snuff, like it's a perfectly reasonable way to do it. Like there are companies who,
Oh, he was
unfortunately,
acting like such an asshole about it. If he wasn't, you know, if he just said, "Yeah, I've developed this method," then he went to Shonen Jump and said, I want to experiment with this new method of making things," you know, then it could have just been a thing. But he doesn't. He does it in the most, Shonen villainesque way possible.
yep. But that's part of the joy. Overall, like I did follow Bakuman pretty carefully, but I actually think I enjoyed it less than I enjoyed some of the other stuff. Like a part of me kind of put myself into the position of what's the writer of the duo,
Takagi.
Takagi, and like like because I'm a writer and I'm a very intelligent person and I've got this drive to pursue this art. But the thing is that in reality, Takagi is a technician. He has specific rules he follows, and honestly, he depends a lot more on what's popular and what's doable than actually creating something new and interesting. Whereas you get someone
Well,
like
yeah, they actually say that specifically. Believe it
yeah,
or not, that's like a major theme that keeps coming up. They mention that there are the two types of manga creators. There are like the genius types, which is Ig Nizuma,
yep,
the 18-year-old genius who can just come up with a hit and it'll, whatever he comes up with is going to be brilliant. Or other types of geniuses, like the one, I forget his name, but he made the Otter series. He just quit his
Hiramaru.
job at like, yeah, Hiramaru, who's hilarious by the way. But Hiramaru, who quit his job at the age of 26 and just decided he was going to write a manga one day, and it was brilliant.
Yep.
Or you have the people like Takagi who are brilliant at synthesizing new information and analyzing trends and changing and calculating their writing to fit a certain style, but it's much harder for that person to get a brilliant work because they're not writing from the heart. And that's something, they're don't get me wrong, like they know there are things that they're good at and that they know that they're good at, but you almost get, I think you get the impression reading that like if they could make a mainstream battle manga, like if Takagi was as good at writing mainstream battle manga as he was at the types of mental battles that they're known for in the series, he probably would,
Yep.
because that makes you more money. But he's not as good at it, and he knows that, so he's going to play to his strengths. But it's all very calculated.
Yep.
Whereas, Mizuma says, I'm going to make a romance today. You know, just because. And I'm
Yep.
going to make a battle manga because I love battle manga are awesome. Whereas Takagi is like, I've experimented with these different styles, and I think I am best at writing this.
Be-
It's a difference that the story points out itself.
yeah. And there's some problems with, like both sides of it. He Takagi probably can't create a genius hit. Well, Eiji Nizuma, like they're like even though, you're watching him dance and it's an amazing dance, he's as liable to trip or repeat the same thing over again or any number of things that, just kind of happens to people who have natural talent. Well, a lot of people when they write, they don't diversify their ideas enough, or they don't keep their ideas flowing through in one setup. Like it's like no, you need, if you're going to introduce this swordsman character, you need to have introduced him chapter this, because you can't introduce a character who is a specific. You can't introduce a character who is a perspective character anything less than chapter 3. If you don't have all your perspective characters being introduced by chapter 3, you've got a problem. You think about it, it's like, yeah, sure, but I've got this and I've sold this, but the pitfalls are always there for you to stumble into, which is why I'm very careful with myself and Pinkerton's Ghost. I understand hubris, and while I do think myself the best horror writer out there, no, I'm kidding. I don't do that. There's probably 50 people ahead of me on that thing. I
Well, I try to keep a realistic view of myself in terms of my writing ability
ugh,
with Pinkerton's Ghost as well. I've mentioned this from the beginning. Like, do I think that I am a bad writer? No, I don't. I don't think I'm a bad writer. Do I think that I am a great writer? Not yet. Do I think I have the potential to be a great writer? I do, but the flip side of this is that, unlike you, as you've mentioned, my goal is not to be a writer. I have other goals.
yep,
Now, don't get me wrong. Like, my goal is to write, but not to be a writer. I intend to keep writing. I intend to write novels and things, and I intend to improve my craft. But I'm never going to improve it to the master level. And it's something though that I can acknowledge that while also acknowledging that I am not a bad writer.
yep,
I mean, like I'm able. You have to be able to square that circle, I think, because the idea of having too much modesty is just as much of a crutch as being too arrogant about it. If I were to tell you, don't bother looking at this, it's awful, that really wouldn't help anybody. So if I come out with a story, I'll give my honest opinion on what I think of how it turned out. For example, with Ghost Store, I wasn't sure about it when I started writing it, and then Ghost Store was one of the more heavily revised of my Pinkerton's Ghost stories, along with The Hunted. Uh,
yep.
and these are things that you probably don't remember as much as I do, because for you they're Tuesday. But I but I remember this sort of stuff, and now I look back at Ghost Store and I reread it and I go, I think it turned out fairly well. I know that there are writers who look back at their previous works and they go, ugh, that's awful. And I do that with some of my older stuff, but not all of it. And I don't think it's very helpful to do that with all of it. You know, you need to have an honest judgment of your own abilities.
Yep.
And by an honest judgment, that means the good and the bad true. You know, you need to be able to judge your flaws and to accept criticism, but you can't just you can't. It's false modesty. It would be false modesty if I were to say I was not a good writer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would literally like I would be lying to try and make myself, you know, sound better to people. Megabuster Shepherd says I need to check out Bakuman. It sounds fun. Uh, yes, it is. Bakuman is a lot of fun. As far as if I enjoy it more than Death Note, uh, it's more consistent. Death Note kind of falls apart in its second half.
Oh,
However,
absolutely.
I think that Death Note hit higher heights for sure. I think that the first half of Death Note is among my favorite stories ever. I think the first half of Death Note is an absolute masterpiece and is very nearly flawless. But after the death of L, the story definitely kind of falls apart. I think Bakuman is much more consistent, but I don't think it's ever as good as the first half of Death Note.
Yeah.
But I definitely highly recommend it.
Yep. It's one of those things that like low key, it's gonna be forgotten someday, but I'm pretty sure it'll always have some sort of influence. Uh, in
Yeah, I agree. It's a
it'll.
shame that the anime adaptation's just terrible. I don't know how that happened. Like I'm genuinely shocked how that happened. But the anime just looks like garbage and I don't know why.
Yeah, it's
It
weird.
wasn't done successful either. It ran for 3 seasons. Like but it just looked like I watched the first episode and I said, "Oh my god, this is horrendous." Like what is this?
Yeah.
It didn't look like Bakuman at all. It has this awful art style. The music is utterly unmemorable. I can't remember anything about it. The animation is just bad. Like I don't get it. I don't know what happened with the Bakuman anime, but it's really bad.
I certainly do want to like the only thing I ever like remember is I always wanted to see Fukada's more of Fukada's stuff because honestly like there are so few actual racing like manga and anime. I'm so hungry for it, but they don't have it. And it's like sure, I could watch Initial D, but I want something modern. Like I want something in the modern styles. You know, like I don't want to see terrible CGI of things just racing, but the music's so good. Uh, but it's
The
like
problem is that you can never have a modern racing anime
no,
because a modern racing anime would be all CGI.
no,
You
no,
know it would. It's true. That's
no,
why it could never happen.
no, no. Yeah, all right. Well, our New Year plans are set and done. I'm gonna actually make it to Vietnam this year. I'm hoping. I'm hoping. Uh,
Make sure you visit New Jersey before you go.
oh, I absolutely will. I absolutely will. I'm gonna spend some time with Ken. I'm gonna spend some time with Dave, and I'm gonna probably look at you from beyond a COVID-proof screen. Uh, but that's
Yeah,
uh,
that's the prep.
and Frank
Okay.
sends his love, and I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. I'm not coming in for the bro hug. I'm sorry. Oh no, he was talking about Death Note. Anyway, all right, guys.
Oh.
All
Yeah,
right,
same difference.
it's fair. Uh, all right. You guys have a good night. Thank you for joining us. I'm ending this stream.